We kick off with Evil Eye just about to end Momo, but that's when Ken intervened. They have a bit of a power struggle, and guess what? Evil Eye wasn't the one who lost. Ken takes Momo and runs away with her while avoiding Evil Eye's non-stop set of attacks. Fortunately, Momo manages to make it out, leaving Ken to deal with Evil Eye. And for the most part, Ken was getting cooked. Evil Eye had him running around the vicinity like miles and across the Spider-Verse. However, when Ken thought he was out of his grasp, that's when Evil Eye almost caught him off guard with an uppercut that would have dealt ridiculous amounts of damage if it would have connected. Evil Eye goes in for another punch, but Ken manages to step out the way and proceeds to charge up his own attack as he goes in flying into his torso with the double fists. But that shit was as useless as a philosophy degree as Evil Eye tosses him to the side. He then sends his ball Ken's way. Ken jumps up to avoid it, but that worked in Evil Eye's favor as he hits him with a knee to his chest. They crash through this wall, and despite Ken being on the receiving end of that hit, he somehow popped up behind him and served him a drop kick. Gigi tries to retaliate, but Ken managed to hit him with the slip and ran. So he manifests another ball, kicks it towards him, putting Ken in a corner, and it looked like Gigi was gonna make this hit count. However, Ken skedaddled right on time. He then tries to sneak him, but Gigi responded accordingly and finally landed a hit. He was about to finish him off, but Ken stepped out the way. Evil Eye got sick and tired of Ken's shenanigans, so he decided to wrap things up and pop his ult. He opens up this mini domain expansion and traps him, and once he stepped inside, he was abusing this nigga like how Puff did Cass. But while he was doing all that, he started talking crazy about Momo, but Ken wasn't having it, and for the first time this season, he pulled out a memorable performance. Dude fucked him up so bad that his domain crumbled. But let's move on to when Evil Eye cooked in a 1v3. He kicks it off by first taking care of Muscle Woman's goons. He then tries to stomp her, but all he did was deal damage to her arm, and just as he was about to follow up that attack, that's when Momo saves this ashy bitch. But Evil Eye had his eye on the prize.
This guy stinks!
And he was not letting her out of his grasp. But Squilliam's turn over here was on his ass. Because of that, he decided to turn him into a Spalding ball. And right after that, he was planning to turn him into Stephen Hawking. But Momo came in clutch. The next thing you see is Momo, Bert, and Muscle Woman lined up ready to jump him. Evil Eye charges towards them, but that wasn't the real attack, as he had his ball ready to decapitate these folks if they hadn't ducked. So while they're down there, looking like they're reciting prayers, Momo looks up to see that Evil Eye was ready to turn her head into a paste, but Bert pulled through with the assist and pushed her to the side. This shriveled bag of skin tries to land an attack, but Evil Eye got out of the way. He tries to reciprocate the violence, but Momo had already retrieved him. After that, she puts him in a hold with her telekinesis. Bert comes sliding on the ground to trip him, and I know this dude's thigh looked like a burnt patty after this. Momo, having used 2 of her telekinesis arms, she thought she had him. Evil Eye got his ball to spin back, tearing her arms, and without wasting a second, he put Bert out the frame. He closes in on Momo, and it looked like amen for her until Chiquitita's pops showed up and started mixing him up, which starts the best exchange in the show so far. Broski tries to come in from the left, but Evil Eye gets him out the way. Now it's him versus Seiko, who kicks it off by swinging at his head. He weaves out the way and goes for his own attack, but Seiko blocks him with the bat. However, he pushes it out the way and tries again, but she parries the next move, making him hit a whole 180. While he's facing the other way, she tries to land a hit, but he front flips to evade it. Evil Eye goes on the offensive, so Seiko proceeds to distance herself. But that's when Cheeky's pops comes in only to get a face full of foot. And I wish I could say that he redeemed himself, but nope. Evil Eye dealt with him swiftly and went back to Seiko. Seiko gets in some swings, none of them connect, and that's when Evil Eye also starts swinging. But his hits also didn't connect. Finally, Seiko was able to strike him, but just a few frames later, he pulled out the roundhouse. She ducks, then he tries to stomp her, but Seiko is on high alert. She dodges that, and man, look at those titties. When I saw this, I licked the pixels off my screen.
You what?
God, this is a sick nigga.
My bad. My bad. Seiko and Evil Eye continue to have their back and forth, but this is when Terror intervened and they sealed him. Which brings me to talk about the squabble I've been anticipating for the longest. Ken sends Evil Eye flying with a spinning kick, so Evil Eye gathers himself and responds with a kick of his own. Ken comes in with a double fist, but Evil Eye attempts to ward him off with a fist of his own. Instead, they have a clash. After that, Ken gets in a hit. Evil Eye stumbles back, but then front flips into an attack. Ken dodges it, then kicks Evil Eye into the sky. While up there, Evil Eye decides to send a meteor shower Ken's way. However, he manages to avoid being harmed, but Evil Eye was on his ass. This primate-looking foot, this nigga could throw a whole brick with that shit. So these dudes start jetting around the area. Then, Ken manages to send them flying. Evil Eye pulls out the domain expansion, but that was useless cause Ken went berserk mode and turned his ass into a wallpaper.